الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله. استووا. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Around the Second World War, this was a Anglo-Saxon neighborhood, purely British neighborhood. A number of young people went to the war, and when they came back, they had nothing to do with the religion. And the older generation was having a hard time trying to keep this thing going. And at one time, this was a very, active church. And this is a Presbyterian church, part of United Church. And this was a neighborhood church. There were no cars coming into it because it was early 1900. I think it was, the foundation was dug in 1910, and then it was postponed because of the First World War. So it was not completed until 1928. It was christened as a Presbyterian Church, High Park Presbyterian Church in 1928. The present day parking lot was a tennis court. And the two houses on this side and then another two houses on that side, they were also part of the church property. And this was a huge garden. And they also owned few other properties in the neighborhood. Two houses down, number 78 Boosted Avenue, that was the church priest house. That's called Manse. And the architectural features are similar to Jami Mosque because it was done around the same time. So it was a wealthy church, but eventually after Second World War it fell into misuse or bad, it was not able to carry on by itself. So they started sharing this facility with other churches. But by the end of, by the early 60s or so, one after another, they had different options. They started selling bits and pieces of the property. All these empty lands were actually sold. The priest house was sold. And there were a couple of other houses which was part of church property, with the janitor or the caretaker was actually used to live in there. They were all sold bits and pieces, but eventually they run out of options. And they have to put it up for sale. And that is how, and then it was empty for quite some time, and there were no takers, for the simple reason that after Second World War, the East Europeans started moving into this neighborhood. And they were Polish, Ukrainians, and Germans, and you name it. And they had nothing to do with the Presbyterian Church. They had their own churches. So the property was for sale, and there was nobody who was going to take it. And I think there was a proposal at one time that they are going to make it into a bingo house, a place. And the neighbors actually objected to it. So around that time, the East European community, mostly from the Balkan region, the Albanians, the Macedonians, the Yugoslavians, they bought this place in 1969. And they bought this place, and there was no objection to it because it was a place of worship before. So it was actually being handed over to another group to be used as a place of worship. It was not a bingo place or any such thing. The East Europeans had their own culture in terms of how they, celebrate their weddings and gatherings and things like that. But in their mind, they thought that basement is a community center and upstairs is the mosque. But by 70s, the people from other regions, from Middle East, from the South Asia, they started coming in. And then they were having some problem by looking at what was happening in the basement. After the wedding, there would be some dances and things like that. So there was objection to it, and then this is boiled up to a point that the case has gone to the court. And the court has decided to hand it over to conservative Muslims, so-called conservative Muslims. But for conservative Muslims to carry a mortgage of $120,000 in 1970 was a huge task. And there were not that many families actually. I think they could count about 200 families, and then they were all spread out. But so in the beginning they were struggling with all that. Eventually, I believe that a delegation from MSA, Muslim Student Association of Toronto or North America, they went to talk to King Faisal, Malik Faisal. And he agreed to pay off the mortgage on the condition that the mosque should be handled by a group which is already functioning rather than a new group coming up. So that way the mortgage was paid off and it came into the hands of MSA in 1972, 71, 72, somewhere around that. And it was there with MSA for until 1981. And then eventually it was transferred to ISNA Canada. So that is how presently it is in the hands of ISNA. The ISNA is the one who manages the Jami Mosque. Now, in the beginning, when this mosque was open, I was I'm here since 1972. You could hardly fill up one line for a Friday prayer because people were working and there were not that many people. And then people have to come from very far and things like that because not many people lived in this neighborhood. But by the end of 70s, a lot of young people came in and they were actually living in rooming houses and things like that. So the mosque started gathering some strength. But in the early stages, to its credit, this was the only mosque in Toronto. And people used to come from very, very far places, like from Niagara Falls, from Ottawa, and Sudbury and places like that, to see that the first mosque in Toronto. There were some musallas earlier than this, but a mosque, a properly mosque, which is actually declared as a mosque and continued to serve as a mosque. So people used to come from very far. And then this was a place where there were people from all parts of the world coming in. So in the early stages, in 1970s and all that, there was a very nice, very good camaraderie. There were people from all over the world and they were all together because they were Muslims. And there was no distinction from one to another. So this place was open from day one, and it is an inclusive place where people can come from wherever and we don't ask any questions, and they all feel welcome. But they were not happy with that. They wanted to have their own way of doing things. So they moved out. So in that sense, this Jami Mosque could be called the mother of all the mosques in GTA. Because most of the mosques, they sprouted from here, and then like a live cell, they started splitting. If there was a mosque separated from here, then they started separating within themselves because of this management, because of the power struggle or whatever it is. We used to fill in every nook and corner of the place. And sometimes we used to spill into the parking lot. On a Friday and all that, we used to spread the tarp and pray there. And in the basement, wherever you just see, even in these hallways, people used to jam in together and there was not enough room. But we ran out of that phase in the development of this place. But we are still around, still hanging in. The Presbyterian Church, it did not have any statues. And there were some crosses. They were incorporated in the architectural features of the windows and in the doors and things like that. Every door had a cross. So we cut off the top part of the cross and put a larger glass into it. So now it looks like a T, not a cross. And every window on the top of it had a cross. We removed that. And then all the pews, the benches and all that, they were removed. Then we had to put the carpet in. And if you look at a flat map of the world, Mecca looks to be at the southeast direction, if you're aware of it. So in the early stages, we used to pray in the southeast direction. And if there is an archive at CBC in 1969, when there was an Eid prayer here at Jami Mosque, that video is still available on CBC TV. So the Imam was standing there in the corner, and this was all the men, and the sisters were here in this area. And then eventually, I think in 1980s or so, we discovered that it is according to the geographical or the global calculations and all that, the Qibla is in the northeast direction. So we shifted this direction. Other than that, I think the other addition was the mihrab. This mihrab was open just to give the direction of Qibla. Otherwise, if anybody comes in from the main entrance, it would look like that this is the main direction. And people used to come and pray in this direction, just thinking that the Qibla is in this direction. So we need to provide some visual actually focus for them so that they understand the Qibla is not in that direction. And the carpet was not laid out this way. It was one flat carpet, So things have improved over a period of time. Things have changed a little. Now, we are pioneer in many ways. A lot of programs which were started here from Jami Mosque, including the weekend school, the camps and the summer camps. The best part of it was that we have opened a ghusl room or a bathing room for the dead bodies. And this was the first one in Toronto. A mosque had that was in 1980. And then people used to come for that facility from far places, from Ottawa, from Sudbury, from Niagara Falls, and places like that, because nowhere they had any such facility. Before that, we used to go to the funeral home to do the bathing and also to pray janaza prayers in their own chapel. But once the facility was brought here that we could perform the ghusl and then also the janaza prayer, and the body could be taken from here to the cemetery. And then in 1984, we opened a daycare center in the basement that actually was converted into a junior school up to grade 2. And then when the numbers increased, the school was moved from here to Mississauga, which was ISNA Junior School. And that junior school is still there. And then from there, when the ISNA center was established, then they have a senior school now at ISNA. The first imam of the masjid, I believe, I did not see him. He was an Albanian brother who used to have a shop on Bloor Street. And then when they moved out, the Albanians, they established their own center on DuPont Avenue. They are, Annette, on Annette Street. The Albanian center is there. But it is not open all the time. They are open only for limited hours, limited times. After that, when it came into what is called as conservative Muslim, Dr. Khadir Bey, who was a professor at U of T, was the head of the Department of Arabic, Islamic Studies or something like that. He was the imam here. He was the imam in the sense he was here the Friday Khatib. And I don't think there was an imam. Only when Hisham Bidran came in, he was the imam for a little while. And then the Tablighi Jamaat also had a place, and they used to call it the Markaz. And this was also the hub of Tablighi activities. And people and the Jamaat from all parts of the world, they used to come here, even from Mauritius, from South Africa, and from China, from wherever, they used to come here. And this was a place for them. This was the Markaz. And what is his name? Colonel Amiruddin was also the imam for a little while. And then there were a number of other imams, Ibrahim Malabari, and then Abdul Hakim. Then now the present imam is Sheikh Hamdi, who is here for last 8 years. That's how some of them I might have missed in the process, but these were the people who were here at some point or other.